One thing that we underestimate is the power and the wisdom that just comes from asking God. Like God gives us an endless amount of wisdom. He's graciously giving us that wisdom. And like even just like knowing that we don't have to like go through all these loops and holes in people. Like God's always there to talk to.
Hi friends, you've made it to Karina Faith Diaries, your new go-to spot for real talk about the journeys that shape our faith. I'm Karina, your host, and I'm super excited to chat about real-life struggles, wins, and everything in between. This is all about honest conversations, lifting each other up, and the power of a relationship with Jesus. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or to get inspired, let's get started together. Hi friends, and welcome back to Karina Faith Diaries. I'm so excited to bring this guest today because she's a friend of mine. We've met like 7 years ago or so. We ended up going full-time on this influencing world kind of together. And so I've known Ashley Bell. She's known here in town as the tall blonde Belle. She's sitting with us today and talking about her ups and downs in her infertility journey, you guys. So many pearls of wisdom to share and for you to listen to. If you're in a waiting season in your life, not just in like waiting to have a child, but maybe you're waiting for healing, or if you're waiting for an opportunity or a job that was supposed to come and didn't, or something in your family that's happening and somebody's struggling and you're just waiting for that person to get better. It's just so many waiting seasons in our lives, and Ashley can attest to being probably the most difficult thing that happened to her, and it was such a long time, and I feel like God really was preparing her for what was to come. And so many beautiful things have happened and developed in the waiting season that I am so excited to share with you guys. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, guys, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up here on YouTube. It really helps us to spread the word. And this is a great way that you can partner with us if you feel like this content is beneficial and encouraging and beautiful and all the good things. It's really helpful. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, make sure to give us a rating, maybe a 5-star review. That would be so incredibly amazing. And I thank you so much. And let's go to Ashley. We have Ashley Bell in the house. Yay! I'm so excited about this. We've tried booking her and schedules are so crazy and everything. So we finally made it happen. And I'm so excited that it's a sunny day today. So we're here baking a little bit.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited to be warm.
Yes, me too. It's being like in the single digits here in Indy. So we're excited that the sun's shining. First of all, Ashley, if you're here in Indianapolis, she needs no introductions because she's really, a great influencer, fashion, beauty. She's been through a incredible journey with her baby, the infertility, and all of those things that we're going to touch base on. But first things first, I wanted to start with your life as a child. Like, are you from Indiana, or tell me a little bit about your family life?
Yes, I was born and raised in Indy. Grew up on the south side, actually. So I'm like an hour south of where I am now. Just your normal, typical childhood. My mom grew up in the area. Grandma grew up in the area. Very Midwest.
Yes,
like very family.
yes.
We all lived in the same area. My husband, though, is from Chicago. I met him.
Oh, that's right.
So I met him in college, and his whole family's from Chicago. They all live all over the place now. But my mom was a runner, so I loved running, played sports, loved outdoors, all the things. You're just typical Midwest
yes.
childhood.
So you have siblings?
Yes, I have 2 younger brothers. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
We're all like 18 months apart, so we're all really close in age.
Oh gosh.
I have a daughter. My youngest brother has 3 girls, so it's all girls.
Oh my gosh. So your mom is like thrilled.
My mom loves it.
Oh my gosh, I bet. I did not know she was a runner too. So that's what got you into that. Were you guys a Christian family growing up, or were you not really involved?
Yeah, it's a good question. I grew up in a Christian family. My parents, it was a little bit different. Like their parents ended up finding Jesus later in life. And I am just really thankful for the background that I have. I actually went to a private school up until 6th grade, a Christian school. And I went to a public school, and I'm so glad I got both Christian and public. Yes. I'm very, very thankful for that. I grew up Christian, non-denominational now. My husband actually grew up Catholic.
So did I.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
funny.
He went to a Catholic private school up until the same thing, like 6th grade, and then high school he went to a public school. And
Why do you say that you liked having those both experiences? What were they?
I don't want to use the word sheltered, but I also want to use the word sheltered.
Yeah, I get it.
It kind of exposed me to more things. I feel like it gave me more foundation of like my faith and who I am, and it challenged me in different ways. Not saying that you can't find those, because I went to a Christian college and definitely you could get that anywhere.
Yeah.
But it just really challenged my faith. I was put in situations where I'm like, I had to choose, right or wrong, and even just the people I surround myself with. And I feel like it really pruned and fine-tuned who I am and what my faith is.
Yeah. So Mike went to a Christian college too. That's where you guys met.
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually didn't at first. He went to we're very opposite type of people. He is the more laid back, chill one, C student, like always manages to find a way through, but just really chill. I am like, get it done, straight A, top 10 in my class, never got to be in my life. And he failed his first semester in the colleges when it was going to. And IWU was the only college that let him in for his second semester. And he's a grade older than me. Yeah, he's a grade older. So it was meant to be. He ended up proving himself after that.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So what was your degree? In
business.
Business, that's right. And he's
criminal justice.
Oh wow.
So yeah, his dad was a firefighter growing up, the chief in Chicago, actually. The chief in Oak Park.
That's a big deal, yeah.
So like the show Chicago Fire, that's Mike's dad.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So then you guys met in college. Did you like know that you're going to get married then or?
No, our story is actually really interesting. So I went to college right around the time, Facebook was out. Instagram was not around. Everybody was using Facebook, and I remember getting this friend request. And when I was in high school, my world was Whiteland, Indiana. Like that, anybody outside of that area was like, I just didn't. And that was before like people majorly use cell phones, and you had Instagram to know people all over the world.
Yeah.
And I got a request from Mike because he found me in a incoming freshman group. Facebook group for IWU. And I was like, that's weird. Why is this person from Chicago asking me to be a friend or whatever? Fast forward, we go to first weekend in college, my freshman year, his sophomore year. He sees me at a bonfire and he's like, that's the girl from Facebook. That's the girl.
Did you accept the friend request?
I have no idea. You know why? I have no idea. So funny. Because it was so like not normal. Like it wasn't normal for me to have like interactions with people outside of my bubble.
Yeah.
And so his friends pushed him into me. I was actually dating someone at the time and literally broke up with that guy the next day or the couple days later, because I knew it wasn't necessarily I wanted to date Mike, but I was like, I don't want to go into college without any regrets, and I don't want to feel, not that saying that's a bad decision. It's just for me, that's
such a normal thing. Yes, I agree.
And I just was like, I got to go full send and just do this. So actually, we were really good friends. He tried to pursue me a couple of times. Then he realized like that door is closed. He thought the door was closed. And 2 years later, my grandpa, he knew my family and everything. And my grandpa even said, who's really, really like strict, he was like, you need to give Mike a try. And so I went on a date and.
What? So you guys became good friends to the point that he met your family and everything, but you guys were not romantically involved?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, we were actually really good friends. And we went on spring break with me and my two best girlfriends. And then my two guy friends. And we actually invited him like to come. And that was kind of the trip where I still didn't like him, but my grandpa was like, he was like, it's Mike, he's a friend. And yeah, now we've been married for almost 13 years.
Oh my gosh, you guys. And Mike is the sweetest person ever. He really is. Like Brian really enjoys him and his company. He's just super down to earth and just super chill, like Brian, they have very similar personalities. Yeah, so cool. So you guys decided to get married right off college then, or?
Yeah, your typical Midwest Christian college couple, ring before
graduate
spring.
And then they get married.
So we actually, we got married. I graduated a semester early. Mike was a year ahead of me.
Okay.
So I graduated December and we got married in May. So So I think we had a 10-month engagement really quick. I was married. I was a baby. I was just barely 22.
Wow. That's how Bella's
Um,
going to be like too, because she was an early grad too.
yeah, yeah.
So then you guys, like you got married, then you wanted to have babies right away or wanted to wait? Because usually that's kind of how it
Yeah.
goes, right? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, I didn't want them right away, but compared to most of the world, it's pretty young. I still
Yeah.
wanted to start having kids at like 25.
Yeah.
We were in a position where I was still figuring out my job. Like I actually became a high school business teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was teaching, I was getting my license. I was in school. I'm just so thankful for the opportunities that I had in that. I think I wouldn't be in the career that I am now if I didn't have that experience in school. Because literally, like my students are the reason that encouraged me to do my job.
And I remember that because I met you when you were teaching still, which was so funny. It was, we actually quit our daytime jobs right around the same time. I think you quit before me, like maybe a season before me.
We were out to brunch.
We went.
We both said it at the same time.
Yes, it was so it just brings back so many memories because I went to be an assistant teacher at that time. But so you went into teaching with your degree, so you're teaching business, and then were you just not happy in that environment? Like, what made you want to become an influencer?
I didn't even know what influencer was. We all didn't. People are like, how do you start?
It's been so long.
I was just sharing the things that I love on Instagram, and I love photography, and I love fashion. I love everything. Actually, it was my infertility. We were in a year into trying, and I was like, I got to do something that fills my cup. I have to be creative. That's why I love teaching. You can be creative. So this was like even before teaching, I was an assistant. And I don't even remember exactly when I started sharing. I just started posting things. And I don't think anybody knew what it was. Like, no. I think people knew that it was a separate thing, but I didn't think people thought it was a job.
Yeah.
And I just started.
Some people still don't think it's a job.
It's like 5 jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I just started sharing random like photos and and I've always been that way. Like even I took photography for fun in high school. I took digital design and web design for fun in college. It was an extra class.
That's amazing though. So you had a little bit of a...
Well, I loved it. I love photography. I had my own cameras. I loved editing videos. I made tons of movies growing up. I loved it. So I've always had a passion for that, which is so cool because even growing up, I was like, Lord, I just don't know what I want to do, but I know what I love. And I just have this like nudge. And so that's why in 2000, I don't even know what year it was, 16, so I don't even know.
I think around 2017.
17, yeah. I was like, I don't know, but I love this. And it's crazy because people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And now it makes sense because what I wanted to be wasn't even
a thing.
Yeah. This kind of brought me life again. A friend told me this one time. There's different stages in life. Like you either are anchoring, you're drifting, or you're sailing. You're anchored when you feel like you're in a place in life. You're like, okay, this is I feel like I need to like invest in what I'm doing now. Sailing means like I'm not necessarily where I want, but I'm working towards something and I know what that goal is. And it's just a busy life. And then drifting is a part of my life where I felt like I was like, I don't know where I'm going, what's happening. And I felt like I was in a drifting stage. And I was like, I just got to do something different. So that's when I started doing that. And it was just a way to like cope with my infertility and what was going on.
So when you said when you were younger, you were praying to God. So did you always have a close relationship with God growing up? Like, is it something that like you were reaching to him? Did you know you could talk to him all the time? Like how was that relationship?
I did. I always knew God, but I didn't really think of him as like father and dad until I went through infertility.
Really?
Because I truly like, it's funny because even when I thought was hard, it was nothing compared to even those last few years. Like he just stretched me so much. And it's like crazy to think how something so hard and so heartbreaking. Because on the outside, you're like, why wouldn't you just hate God?
Yeah.
And
a lot of people do, right? They don't understand. Yeah.
And it's like, he's all that I have. Like I learned in those 8 years of like, it doesn't matter my looks. It doesn't matter my money, how much, I was in a career that was thriving and I still felt like I want to be a mom.
Empty. Yeah.
You know, there's a period of my life where I struggled with friendships and like during the same time I made so many amazing friends and it's like God was giving me everything. So I just knew that there's nothing in this world can like make me happy except for God. And I've seen God pull through. And like, I think We actually got pregnant. We ended up miscarrying that baby, but it makes sense now that we know the full circle, the full story.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I was even able to get pregnant is a miracle. It's a shame that I miscarried, but like the fact that God chose that timing to say like, just hang on. And I think that just gave me so much hope. Even though that was only 4 years into it, I still had 4 more years left.
You knew you wanted to get pregnant at 25. So you guys were trying. You were not getting anywhere. Then you went into the career, like posting things online, this and that. And so when did you get pregnant in that?
I had left teaching at that point. So I was teaching and trying to do the Instagram thing for 2
Okay, so
years.
you were already like establishing yourself or your brand.
And at that point, I had not told anybody that I was dealing with, like the public, the social media. My friends knew, even but my family didn't even know.
Oh.
Because I just like could not, I just didn't want to talk about it. It was something that I'm just like, I just don't, it's like I just didn't want to admit that. Because once I admit it, that's my identity. And I didn't want to become the girl who couldn't get pregnant or because I've seen people go through that. And I just didn't want to be that person.
So did you know the reasons why you couldn't get pregnant, or you guys were just trying casually and it was not happening?
Oh, we went through so many times. We didn't know until probably the last few months before I started IVF with Blake. So probably 7.5 years. And we did so many tests. But the funny thing is it's like a crazy, it's almost like God, just like the full circle. Like the main reason why there's multiple, it's between both Mike and I. Like I had my things and Mike had his things, but the real nail in the coffin was like Mike's situation. And the thing that told us, that kind of nudged us, was one of the very first tests that we took in year 1. We literally pulled through old databases to find Mike's tests. And so because of that, one of those very first tests, we were able to get more answers and further test Mike. And that was the only reason. So it's just crazy to think out of all the things that we did.
That you think it's a waste of time, right? But it's all in his plans.
Yeah. And so, it's just crazy. So 8 years of infertility. I got pregnant halfway through 4 years, year 4. At this point, I was working full-time, blogging, Instagram, content creation for 2 full years. It was my 4th year doing it.
Okay.
But I was full-time and I left teaching 2 years prior to that. So I was more established or whatever.
Yeah.
We actually moved our house to the north side. I left and moved up north. And that's when I found I was pregnant and I miscarried. There was no heartbeat.
I remember that.
It was a chromosomal abnormality. We actually found I was a baby girl because of the test. She had just how they knew from the testing, which is absolutely insane that they can know that. And it was really heartbreaking and really hard. But I also think it gave me so much hope because it's interesting. There's different types of infertility. Some people can get pregnant easily, but they just can't sustain a pregnancy. Some people just can't even get pregnant at all. So it's like, it's not, you can't clump it into one thing.
Sure.
There's just so many.
It's so complex.
It's yes. And so for me, it was just seeing that positive test. Whereas some women, that may just be a triggering hard because they're like, oh my gosh, here we go. Like we gotta,
But for you, it just made you.
Yeah, for me, it was just like, okay, I know that it can happen. I know that able to, like, God wouldn't do this if it wasn't on purpose. And so that kind of gave us a second wind to do more testing and to test further. So yeah, we went through a lot.
So just before you go on, like walk us through the feeling of, you were obviously so excited and so over the moon when you found out, right? And then did you guys go to do a ultrasound?
We didn't do an ultrasound. I did do a test that confirmed everything. When I found out was my 6 or 7 week appointment when they go and check everything. Yeah, the heart. And so there was no heartbeat. And they're like, well, we'll just give them 1 more week, which was the worst week ever.
Oh my gosh, I can't
waiting for a week. And in my head, I'm like, it's probably not going to.
Yeah.
And I've come to find out I had they saw 4 eggs inside of me.
What?
4. 3 eggs and 1 fertilized embryo. So I could have had quadruplets. Like,
oh my gosh,
crazy.
That would have been insane.
Yeah. So like they said that like, can't explain that to this day. But, so anyway, I found out a week later and it was almost, which is crazy to think this, It was February, like literally, like we're only a couple weeks before that anniversary of when I found out. It was like right in the beginning of February. Mike, when I found out, Mike and I immediately were like, we got it. I had my surgery and we left for Florida for like a weekend just to like get away because it was just it was so hard. It was hard, but because I was like, why would God take me this far? Like, why would he bring me and give everything to me and just to take it away? And that was such a hard mental battle to go through. And even like, usually when that happens and you hear your friends talk about how they got pregnant and they miscarried, everybody's like, well, you're going to get pregnant right away then because, you know, your body just needed to learn. And it's like, that's not what happened to me.
Yeah.
And it took 4 more years.
Wow.
And I still couldn't get pregnant naturally, you know, and I had to go through IVF. And it's like, but even then, even though it was 4 more years, now that I'm holding my baby girl, like it's still was worth it. And it's like, it's never, even though it was God made me wait 4 more years, I still love him. I love him honestly even more. It's like, I look at Blake, I'm like, I can imagine a life without Blake. Yeah. And like looking at, like if I would have had another baby or this, and it's I could always sit back and dwell on like what the could have happened. Which is not healthy. But it won't make me be present for Blake. Like that's not fair for her. It's not fair for anything else. So.
And it's trusting God's timing too, right? Like you know that what he wants for us is good. Like he you know, whatever we wish, what he has for us is so much better than we can possibly imagine. But it's so hard to hang on to that, right? During the time. So what are some of the things that you did during that process of 4 years of waiting, you know, and just not knowing if it was ever going to happen? Yeah. Just wanted to know for women going through this, you know, and give them some hope too, or how did you reconcile that? What did you do? Like, what was your, you know, mindset during that 4-year time?
I mean, I wish I could sit here and say every single day, like, I just was like, okay, God, thank you for another day. I was like, no, I had my struggles. And I remember that miscarriage probably held me over for 2 more years of positive, like being positive. Okay. Like for the next 2 years after that miscarriage, I felt super filled by the Holy Spirit. I just felt so encouraged because I still in the back of my head said, well, I'm going to still get pregnant then because that's what everyone tells you. But God was like, just not yet. Like, that's not what I want. And so it was 2 years after my miscarriage where it really sunk in because I'm getting older. All of my friends are almost done having kids because again, in the Midwest, everyone's done having kids by 30.
Usually. Yeah.
And like, it's a very like, normal thing. And so but it's interesting because all of my in-laws are from Chicago and like people aren't even married until 30.
In big cities it's very normal to not until you're like late 30s even.
So after my miscarriage I was like, it's kind of like when I started blogging, I was like, I need to like mix things up. I need to challenge myself. I need to learn something new. So that's when Mike and I just started to hike and we're like, let's just be active and let's just explore the world. Let's take advantage of this time because we were seeing friends who had kids, which there's blessings in everything. Yeah. And that's definitely a pro when it comes to being later, like the last one of you and your community, your friends to have kids that you can kind of make not necessarily a better decision because it's not better. It's just like you can kind of have more perspective.
You're more mature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
hopefully, hopefully you're more mature.
So we're like, we saw all of our friends like in these toddler stages and we're like, okay, we know there will be a season where we won't be able to. So let's just take advantage, explore the world, hike. So we literally hiked thousands of miles all over the country, even the world. Yeah. We hiked Half Dome, the Narrow, like everything. And through this time, like I just loved being out in God's creation and in his nature. And it was really healing. I had no distractions from cell phone, no anything. And it showed me that like, it kind of like symbolized if I'm going to be in this valley in life, I might as well climb mountains and show that I can still do this. I can challenge and I can still challenge myself in that way. It's almost kind of like a way of saying like, well, if I can't be a mom, I'm going to embrace the life this chapter in life that I'm in.
Mhm.
And it was a really fun time. Now that I look back and I'm like, not very many people can do that.
No, what a blessing. I was about to say,
Like,
how incredible is it that you could just pack and go?
yeah, and with my job, and I'm
Mhm.
like, God, even though I felt really angry that God wasn't letting me be a mom and have kids, but I'm like, but God also allowed me to like have almost a decade exploring the world with my husband, which most
Mhm.
people wait until they're like 50 or
Retired,
40 to
yes.
do that. And
Yes.
it's like, it's so cool that I get to be able to do this at such a young age.
Yeah.
And I think that is one thing that infertility has taught me is has brought me so much perspective.
Mm.
I'm really thankful for those years that I got to spend with Mike, and now I'm excited to do them with my kids one day.
Yes,
So, yeah.
which you've done. You already went hiking with Blake, right?
Yes.
That is so cool. So in the midst of all this turmoil, like some people either run from Jesus or they run to Jesus. And when was the point that you found yourself running to him, even though you were angry?
Honestly, I probably wouldn't if it hadn't been for like people in my life to constantly keep on directing me and pointing me to him. I think that just goes to show like how important it is to surround yourself with community. I mean, even you, Karina, like even when we first met, you got your first cancer diagnosis.
Mhm.
And like I'm like, God wouldn't do that on accident. And like just
Yeah.
if he wouldn't do that on accident, he wouldn't have me miscarry. Like he knows what's best for me.
Mhm.
And like bringing certain people in my life and my job and like this time with Mike and all the opportunities. I'm like, I just gotta like trust in him, because everything in my life that is good, I could not have planned. Like I could not. And everything that I try to plan ends up just being terrible and just not good.
Same.
Like it's just
I
like,
to admit.
and I still like fall for that trap. And I'm like, I always tell myself I'm not gonna fall for it again. And it's like still like,
Mhm.
and I think, yes, I was so angry with God. And there was towards the end, I used to be like, at one point I was fine with friends telling me they're pregnant, but then it got to the point where I would just straight up cry and just be sad. And I'm like, I want to be so happy for you. I really do. I just don't know how to respond. My emotions just don't know how to handle it. And it was almost like a numb feeling. And that was the only feeling that I could feel. I just felt like I just lost my feeling for things, but also just my community. Like I had other friends going through infertility around me and miscarriage, different type, but just having the people around me and the people on Instagram, just like the community. And I think honestly, it goes to show like you don't know how much like even like the smallest things that you do in the day-to-day can help impact somebody. And it's like, if I know people do that to me, like I want to be that person for other people. Like even just my mentor, I've known her like most of my life, and I'm really good friends with her daughter, and we've done Bible studies for almost over a decade. And when I first miscarried, she gave me a list of God's promises, like 5 promises to God. And she's like, whenever you are feeling overwhelmed or anxious, like go into a quiet place and read these out loud multiple times. Just read them out loud. If you can't like think it, just say it. Like there's so much power in just like saying who God is out loud. And so that's what I did. I read those promises over and over again. And I wish I could say like, oh, everything was cured after that, but like
No.
it wasn't. But also something really interesting, and this is like there was a study done. I don't know how the source or anything, but it was a study, and they studied all the different emotions of the brain, and they said that our brain can do multiple emotions at the same time. Like you can be happy and sad at the same time. You can be confused and excited at the same time. You can be all these emotions at the same time, but there's 2 emotions that you cannot feel at the exact same time. It is gratitude and anxiousness.
I saw you saying that once in your stories, and that was so
and you can look it up. It's like science facts. Like
yes.
they actually, and you can experience them simultaneously, but you cannot. So like in those moments where I felt anxious, I would just start talking about how the things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the ability to travel the country. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my community. Wow. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful that I can walk. I'm grateful that I can breathe. I'm grateful for the sunny day right now.
Yes.
Like and I think it's so simple, but it's also something that's just, it's actually hard.
It's an exercise.
Yes.
It takes effort,
yes.
right? To look at the good things in your life. That's why I'm a huge believer in gratitude, and I'm gifting you my faith journal that I made,
I'm
which
so
is
excited.
I know, it's a gratitude journal, which I've been meaning to say this. I'll leave like links below, you guys. I haven't done that yet, but I still have a few left that I will. I wanted to save, a bunch to gift to guests that
I'm
come,
so
but
excited.
yeah, you're getting
That's
one.
another thing that I really love doing was journaling.
Really?
I have filled probably in those 8 years of infertility, probably 5 or 6 books of journals.
Wow,
And
I love journaling too.
I love it. And I used to think like, okay, you have to fill out a full page. No,
it
it could be like a couple sentences, and it could be
Mhm.
like every other day, or it could be every week, or it could be, you
Yeah.
can go a month and not doing it. And I think just like writing out your thoughts force you to slow down. Because sometimes when I'm in my head, I'm just like all over the place, and it just like
Mhm.
is so much going on. But I think like writing it down is more intent. It makes you just more intentional with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And yeah, so journaling was a big one for me.
Do you have a specific technique that you use of like what you journal, or you just like jot down thoughts?
I don't know where I heard this, but there's like a different like a method that you can do. But I always like to start off with like even just prayers, anything with a
Mhm.
praise, and proclaiming who God is. Like,
Acts.
Lord, yes.
It's called Acts.
Acts, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I was
Right.
like, instead of just like like unloading all of my things that I want and like prayer requests, just like in half the time when I find after I like declare who God is and just like say
Mhm.
all my praises, I find that I don't really have as much, like it kind of,
Yeah, you remember like, hey,
yes.
I'm his daughter, I'm his creation.
Yeah.
Like
So
I
that's
am.
something that I would always do.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I like writing down my prayers too, because I like looking back on my journals
Mhm.
years later and be like, wow, like something, it's so cliche because it's said on social media, like, remember how you were praying for what's happening today. But it's so true. We are just always like thinking, what's next? What's next? And sometimes we're missing now on like the prayer that we've been praying for so many years, and it's happening. And we're too busy not realizing because you want to chase the next thing. And so journaling, it helps me to focus on the today, on the present. And I love that, to praise, and then it's like confession, right?
Yes.
You confess, and
Mhm.
then you give him thanks, and then you
Mhm.
do the supplication, which is your
Yes.
asks.
I'm so glad you know that, because I couldn't
No, I
remember.
love it because
know
I
in my
use this.
head.
Well, we're just in like, we are in the midst of like 21 days of prayer and fasting, so we talk about this all the time of like how you should come to his courts with praise. That's biblical. Like, so whenever you want to ask God for something, use this little way of doing it. It's just like praising and then confessing that we are, our iniquity, our sin, our things that we do every day that are not pleasing to him. And then you give him thanks. So writing the gratitude journal is so nice to like write 3 things a day, like that you're grateful for. And even if it's nothing else but the sun shining, right? Or the warm cup of coffee, like sometimes it's all you have to, because it's a bad day or whatnot. It reminds you that God is in charge and that he is above all and taking care of us. So did you ever think in that period that maybe you weren't going to be a mom?
Yes. So I had a lot of anxiety when it came with that, and I carried it differently, like subconsciously too. I would have nightmares like that I would be held hostage or trapped. Like I always had nightmares that I was trapped in a room and I couldn't get out.
Oh, wow.
And I actually even experienced claustrophobia for a few years. Like if I was in a place with no windows, I would freak out. And
oh my gosh.
And it just was that was those last 2 years. I just felt so scared of being left behind. And I think that was just like kind of like a ripple effect of how I felt about being a mom. I felt like I was losing my like chance. And it was even just like mourning the loss of like my kids would never be the same age as my friends' kids growing up, which is so funny because God's funny.
He brought you some of them.
He brought me so many good friends, and some of them, like we ended up all being pregnant at the same time. And I was like, that's the one thing that I always wanted.
Oh, Ashley.
And the fact that I was pregnant with all of my friends at the same time, not all, but most of them.
Yeah.
It was so
special. Yeah.
And I was even pregnant around all of my friends at the same time, my first pregnancy before I miscarried. And I think that was really heartbreaking too. Thank you. And like, it was cool to see that like God still had that, and like those little things is like what helped carry me through, and I think that's what kept pushing me. Like I wasn't fueled by necessarily answered prayers. I was fueled by like those little nudges of like, just wait, it's your time's coming, just wait. And I had to fully like, I had to give 100%. I couldn't, if I even had kept 1%, it was like, I still felt the anxiousness. I had to truly like just let it go. And I had to, and it was a daily practice. Yes. It was something I had to do daily because it felt like every morning I would fight those anxious thoughts again. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not just I read my Bible and I'm cured for the next rest of my life. It's
I wish, right?
No. And it's something that you have to do regularly, even when you feel good, because it just helps you carry through.
So when we talk about infertility, we often talk about like how the woman feels because we're feeling all the feelings, we're getting injected with hormones, in your case, like there's all the things. But how did Mike feel through all of this? Like what was his reaction to this journey?
Mike is he's a man of few words, very good words. He's kind of like Brian.
Yes.
And some people may take it as like, even when we found out we were pregnant, he was like, no reaction, but he's like, I knew. And he's just confident. Aww. And like when we found out the gender, he was like, even just a smile, like he is someone not going to be like screaming off the rooftops. Like that's just not who he is. Yes. And but like, even I think God did that on purpose. Like I needed that. And I think having him that rock and stable, and there was times where we were just super frustrated and angry, but I think it also made us just so much closer together during those times, like going through all of those. It really, I mean, really, truly, like that's why we went on all these adventures together. It's like he's the only one that truly understands kind of like what we're all going. Like he gets it, and I think it all just brought us closer. And I really do think I don't even want to think of how our life would be if we didn't go through this. Yeah, like I would probably take advantage of so much good things in my life, and I don't even know. Like I think about like that's another thing is like if I just think about that and truly think about like I probably would be way more selfish. And not saying people who have kids right away, like I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's how like God was challenging me. And
so do you feel like you solidified your career in those years? Because I kind of feel like that's when you really surfaced as like a hiking influencer per se, Sometimes we have some, things against the word influencer, but we all are influencers in our lives. We all influence someone right? Like people. So this is what the title of the job is. I know. So do you feel like those years were really crucial for you in that sense?
Absolutely. Like that's another thing is like, I am just so glad. Like, if I want to have those years, for Mike and I both to be home with Blake every single day is not normal. And I recognize that. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity too. And it's like, we probably wouldn't have that if we didn't have those years. And again, like, I'm just like, thank you, God. And I'm still like, that could be taken away. I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to like be more in the moment of like what God has given me. And I think that's something I'm still working on today. And what they don't prepare you for is when you go through infertility or any kind of like trauma or season of waiting and suffering. It's like when you do get that, it's a constant struggle of fearing that the ball is going to drop on something else in your life. And I feel like, oh my gosh, everything in my life for the first time is like, I don't have this cloud over me. So good, yeah. And it's like, wait, I get anxious, like something's bad's gonna happen, and I like everything I'm doing is just like, what's bad gonna happen, and I'm trying, and so it just goes to show like so there's always gonna be like something. Yes, but that's why we have God. Like if we didn't ever feel that way, like
we would need him, right? Yes, we need to rely on him. Yeah.
So like we are choosing just to go IVF for the rest of our kids, like transfers. We've already done the egg retrieval process with IVF.
So then in the process of like those next couple of years, then how did you decide on going through IVF?
That's another thing too. I wouldn't be able to afford it with our old salaries, IVF. So like if I was still a teacher, I wouldn't like, it's like, it's like the salary of my teaching job. Like, oh my gosh. And insurance doesn't cover it. And it's like, I was very afraid of IVF at first. And I'm glad that I didn't do it because you don't just like, you can't just resort to IVF because you have to make sure everything else is in order before you can do it. Because if you don't have, some things may prevent IVF from working. So you have to take care of those first. Oh. I'm so glad that we took care of those things first because it probably wouldn't have worked for us.
Yeah. Were you
Um,
seeing a functional doctor too, or
Yes.
yes? Okay.
he actually figured out, like, I actually have a tumor on my pituitary gland that tells me to overproduce a certain hormone. It's actually the hormone used to produce breast milk. So that's why when you're
Oh.
breastfeeding, it's hard for you to get pregnant. So I was overproducing that, and that was preventing me from getting pregnant. But also,
Oh my
Mike's
gosh.
numbers were good, and he would be okay with me telling me he like wants all men like to like. He's a big advocate for this. Is like his morphology and his sperm was like he just basically it was just making it almost near impossible for him, and we needed that assistance with IVF. And
Mm.
so because of IVF, it's like we're a good candidate for it. And so I was just really afraid of it at first because it's just scary. Again, it was like accepting that I was never going to have kids naturally.
Mm.
And I think that was really hard for me. It's like
You're mourning
mourning
that,
it
right?
because even if I could, we did make the decision like we want to transfer like all of our embryos, and I just had to mourn that.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. It's kind of like when a woman goes, it's not the same thing like at all, it's a separate thing, but it's like when you mourn the loss of like being able to have kids again, like go through like menopause. It's just like it's mourning the loss of that chapter in your life. And it's like, and I never got to experience that. I did, but it didn't end in a child, you know. And I think that was really hard for me at first, and it still can be, like, to know that like I always have to go through like the shots and everything.
That's if you want to have another, right? And are you guys trying? Are you
Not
gonna
right now.
visit? Okay,
Yeah.
but
that's
you
what's
have
so
the
funny.
possibility to,
Yeah.
right?
And that's what's funny is like I didn't expect that. But when I first got pregnant from IVF, we got a lot of people coming up to us saying, "Well, now you're gonna get pregnant easier because you got pregnant." And it's like, well, no, I really want to be able to transfer all of our embryos too.
Yeah.
And so that's also something. It's like, could I dwell on that? Could I dwell on the fact that I can't have that? Sure. But is it gonna really like help me bring me closer to God and Christ and happier? No. And so it's like the only thing I can dwell on is the positive. And it's like, okay, well, now I get to actually have more control over it. Like something that was like, because I also was nervous. Like if I were to ever get pregnant naturally, that would be something that I'd be afraid of and anxious down the road. It's like, how hard would it be to get pregnant again then naturally? I think that was like another fear that I had. IVF, it's a little bit more accurate and it's a little bit higher chance, actually a lot higher chance.
Wow.
So God answered that prayer for me, even though I can't conceive naturally.
Okay.
Or get pregnant naturally. God answered that prayer of like, okay, now like it's still going to be hard to go through the process again, but like it's a little bit more.
You know what to expect,
Yes.
kind of thing, right? So then you got to experience the pregnancy, the baby inside of you.
Yes.
Like that's incredible. Okay, so I just wanted to address the people who are, maybe watch the men who are watching this and in the waiting period, in the waiting process. Do you have any words of wisdom to share with us?
Honestly, don't lose hope. But then you also have to like remind yourself that the only thing that you have control over is like how much you can like just your relationship with God and like learning and choosing him over the desires of this world. And I felt like I got to the point where I did accept the fact. Like I was like, I'm not going to have kids or I'll adopt. And but then God kept on showing up in different ways. He brought people in my life, someone who did adopt, actually 2 friends that adopt.
Oh.
And seeing that process and seeing like how much love was in I never thought about that.
Yeah, it gave you options.
Yes,
right?
And I saw a friend who like they found out that they could not. It was impossible for them to ever. So they adopted embryos. There's so many different options out there. And even though my life right now isn't how I would have ever imagined or even wanted. Like I wouldn't have not before. I would have never wanted this. I would have never. I was like in my head, I was going to be done with kids by 30. But I also in my head, I was going to be a nurse, a teacher, originally a nurse in college.
Oh, wow.
And kids by 30. But like God had so much more planned for me. And I have found like whenever my fists are like this, like it just makes it 10 times harder. God's just waiting for me to open my hands. And it's like, even if it's not exactly what you wanted, God's giving you his best.
Yeah.
And there's still beauty in everything out there. And like, there's so many options out there. And even just in seasons of waiting, I even had a friend go through a season of like singleness and just, or like just different things. It's not just like infertility. It's actually very interesting how you still can connect. And I felt like even though we were in different chapters of our lives, we still understood like and kind of connected on that, knowing what it meant to just like be in a season of waiting, because you just don't know. It's scary. You're like, you don't see the end result, but like God is sovereign. He's so good. And I have these like these promises that
I'd love to hear them.
so this is what my mentor Joy, ironically her name's Joy,
Oh my gosh,
who's also a breast cancer survivor multiple times. Joy sent me these are God's exceedingly great and precious promises. There are 5 of them, and they're each backed by scripture. So these I read in a quiet place out loud over and over again. Like, it sounds crazy, but for some, just declaring and saying it, it's like almost telling your brain, like, not right now. Like, this time is for God and who he is. And so the first one is, I will not fear because God is always with me. And the verse is Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or dread of them. For the Lord your God who goes with you, and he will not leave or forsake you. Number 2 is, I will not doubt because God is always in control. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. The third one is, I will not despair because God is always good. That's Psalm 27:13-14. Number 4 is, I will not falter because God is always watching. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may not be able to endure it. And I know this one may not sound weird, but like I was always tempted to hate God or tempted to be jealous or tempted.
Yeah.
Like that was honestly a big thing for me. And like you will be tempted to like have those thoughts. And I think that was like a really big one for me is God's watching me.
Yeah.
And 5, I will not fail because God is always victorious. Isaiah 54:17. No weapon that is formed against you shall succeed, and you shall refute every tongue that rises against you in judgment. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication is from me, declares the Lord. And there's one more that she sent me.
Yeah.
And I'll send you. This was like my verse during all of this. Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. I think just like choosing joy and choosing hope. It's a choice. And I think that verse really helped me and carried me through during those years. So, yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Ashley.
welcome.
That's amazing.
I'll put them in the notes. Those are the 5 things. I have them in my notepad all the time. And the amount of times I've sent them to people.
Really? Yes,
please
like, send it to me so we can.
It's just like re-declaring. And we had this really good sermon the other day. So good. He was talking about whenever you're going through suffering and a hard time and a hard trial, he was saying that it's good to get wisdom from your community and people around you. That's very good. And it's very good to have community. But he said one thing that we underestimate is the power and the wisdom that just comes from asking God. Like God gives us an endless amount of wisdom. He's graciously giving us that wisdom. Yeah. And like, even just like, knowing that you don't have to like go through all these loops and holes in people, like God's always there to talk to, and God's always willing to give you that wisdom and discernment and whatever you need. So just even asking him. So instead of like, I would try to reposition my prayers from saying, Lord, I just want to get pregnant. But like, Lord, give me the discernment of like how to work through today, how to work through my thoughts, and just pray for today.
And the wisdom, right? Of my desires of my heart.
Yeah, Lord,
because he knows the desires of our heart, right?
Yes, he knows. And he wants to give you, he wants you to, he's not there to hurt you.
No.
And I think just like learning, saying like, God, just like, whenever I feel like tempted, Lord, just like give me the wisdom and give me the right words to say to fight those today. And I think that really helped me, because you find that like, even if God answers that prayer, like it's funny how he kind of brings that same, not he doesn't bring it, but you're kind of facing that same hardship in a different form.
Oh yes,
like,
absolutely.
So it's better to have the tools to fight it versus just saying, oh, answer the prayer, here you go.
Yeah.
Like
he wants for us to learn, right? And
he
to
wants
teach
to
us.
Equip you. And,
yes.
And so that really like helped me of like, yes, it's good to ask people around you, but also it's good to like just lean into God and just ask him. Like he's there to be asked.
Well, Matthew 7:7, I was actually reading this chapter this morning. It says, ask and you will you will get an answer, and seek and you will find, and knock and the door will be open. And it's a promise too. So I love this promise thing. I mean, if you guys are going through hardships, I feel the same way to proclaiming God's promises out loud too. So they really are ingrained in our mind, our hearts. It's just so healing, right? Because you're surrendering to him, but you're also declaring that he wants the best for us. Yeah. And there's another one too that I love. Whatever 2 or 3 of you agree here on earth, my Father will do for you in heaven. So which means he will like come together with your community and pray together for those. There's so much power in that, and like community. So how about like plans for the future? Are you guys planning on maybe having another child, or what are some things in your career coming up that we can, look forward to?
Yes, we definitely want to have more kids. And I think it's cool because for the first time in my life, I feel like people are like, when do you want to have kids? I'm like, I just love being a mom right now. For the first time, I'm not under medication. And it's like, it seems weird to not want to get pregnant again.
No,
but I'm
you're
like,
enjoying
I just want to be a mom. And I do. Like, I definitely like, I know there's still times to, I'm like 35 and Mike's 36 and I want to be able to have, kids, but I definitely want to have more kids. And we're actually about to launch a hiking backpack brand.
Oh my gosh.
It's been like a 2-year, I don't know if I told you that. No. It's a 2-year process, designing from scratch, everything. Actually,
look at this, the hiking, the waiting process.
I would have never done that in a million years.
Wow.
And so I really saw a need for hiking backpacks that were aesthetic for women. Everything out there you see is just like
manly,
intense colors and manly. And it's like, I just want like a day hiking backpack. Yeah. I don't want this like backpacking huge thing that I want to carry with me. I want something that like fits all that I need, that has matching, and I want to eventually add like a matching dog leash, and matching this. We're going to have matching water bottles, matching hats, and like we're going to start off with like obviously smaller supply, but the goal is to launch in April. So
April coming up, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So you guys should look out for that.
Let's just say the name has to do with a lot of my story. And that's the whole like heart behind it all, is that I hope that anyone who is going through any kind of trial or suffering, that they can embrace it, whether if they're going on a hike or a trip or whatever they are. If like every time that they carry these backpacks, it kind of reminds them of like there's hope in that. More. And there's more. That's kind of like the heart behind it. And I'm really excited.
And I love that you are such an experienced hiker, so you know exactly what people need when they're hiking. And it's like, so it's coming from someone who actually understands, not just like a influencer who wants to create a product, right?
Yeah, it's the like heart. It's been a long process. Lots of. I wish it would have launched a year and a half ago, but I'm like not finishing until it's perfect.
Wow.
So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to come and, be with us and share your story here.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so thankful for you. It's cool to see how everything has
turn up too.
Like God brought it, and that's another thing. It's like God just knows. He like brought us at the right time together, and just everything. Like everything.
Yeah, with my journey too, it's like things that, I went through, not just the breast cancer, but like something in my family that rocked my world, and it brought this to life. This was birth in the most painful moments of my life. The only thing that was sustaining me was God. And it was just the hope that I knew everything was going to be okay. I didn't know how long it would be, but I knew I hoped and grabbed his promises and held them really close to my heart and started consuming this type of stuff. And I'm like, I want to have one podcast like this one day. I want to be able to talk about, what I went through and give people encouragement. So one more thing before we go, were there anything that really encouraged you in those moments that you were going through this, like just people around you, or was there any other tools like besides journaling in your community?
Well, definitely my community.
Yeah.
Because ironically, out of all of my close friend group, more than half of them experienced miscarriage or loss during the time that I've known them in the past 4 or 5 years. A lot of these people in my community that I've met recently it's just
That's
crazy.
crazy.
I'm going to have hard days, but it's like, okay, just like remember where what God has pulled me through. And it's like, if he can do it once, he can do it again. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Well, would you like to close us in prayer? Or
Yeah.
are you okay, let's do it.
Dear God, I just am so thankful for this time with Karina and to spend with all of you guys. It's honestly such a blessing to be able to sit here and just like reflect on how much good that you have brought into both of our lives and just like how sovereign you are. And Lord, I just pray that whoever's watching this and is going through a season of waiting or suffering, I just hope that they feel encouraged by listening to this and to know that their story's not over yet. Like God is still writing their story and God loves them. And I just pray that if there's anything that they take from this is just that they can lean closer into you and feel closer to you through this. And Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yay!